Hey everyone. I've been trying to look up information on the Bill Ortega case, and so far I've come up with jack squat. Although, it wasn't as if his story never existed or never happened. I couldn't find any details about the case, but I did find a few dead links from local news sites, so I know, for a fact, that the Bill Ortega case was a real case and not some made-up paranoid's fever dream. I'm not sure if this scrub job was government work or the work of this bureau organization. In any case, shit's weird. Why would somebody want to prevent this kind of info from getting out? Looks bad for local police, maybe? I've been stewing in my own juices, pacing around and doing nothing but speculating about this pretty much ever since I heard the first tape. It feels like a failure on my part to abandon this Ortega thing in favor of a new tape, but I gotta get all these things uploaded eventually, so you might as well take a listen to another one. This one is labeled Case File 2SO651, Ringed Mirror.
Case File 2SO651, Ringed Mirror. In June of 2004, the Bureau received a call regarding the suspicious behavior of a relative. A woman named Rhonda Green sounded worried on the phone, saying that her brother Terry started to act very unlike himself. When pushed about this, she said that he started to articulate certain words differently than he usually would, and his mannerisms changed rather suddenly. Normally, we don't investigate or even follow up on calls like these, thanks to the exorbitant numbers of people who insist that their daughter is possessed by demons because she snuck out to be with her boyfriend. There's no shortage of people who are certain that they've experienced an anomaly, despite there being a rational explanation for such things. Using one's intuition, one can generally deduce the reasons for someone's irrationality. Perhaps they miss a loved one who passed. Maybe they can't accept that their son or daughter is acting out. They might have an undiagnosed mental illness, or they just want something to do for a little while. This complaint, however, intrigued me. I was told to place this case low on my list of priorities. I ended up calling Ms. Green and asking for more details. She confessed that her claim sounded very odd and easily explained, but she was convinced that it had something to do with her brother's visit to an antique shop in Chesterfield, South Carolina, around a month ago. He purchased a mirror in order to spice up the living room, and ever since then he's been acting strange. Rhonda started recording their phone calls and showed me the difference in the voices. The first voice was that of a very informal person. Words were just haphazardly slurred together, not in a drunken way, but in the way someone who speaks very quickly does. One phrase did stick out to me during the examination, because Terry managed to say it in the before and after phone call. The phrase was, "I don't think so." In the first call, it sounded more like, "I don't think so." While in the second, every syllable and consonant was quite distinct, said like, "I don't think so," in an almost aristocratic tone of voice. They would also go out with each other every Saturday in order to catch up, but Terry stopped showing up and eventually stopped returning and answering Rhonda's phone calls, and even stopped answering the door when she visited to check up on him. I requested the opportunity to investigate this further, but nobody seemed to be interested in seeing where this went. None of our audiologists or language specialists thought it was anything to write home about. After all, people pronounced things differently all the time for no suspicious reason at all. I did, however, want to check out this mirror. I requested that Rhonda send me a photo of the mirror if she could, and luckily, her brother had sent her one via text the day he bought it, as proven by the photo's metadata. It was obvious that this was a worthwhile case, considering the mirror slightly altered the image that it reflected. After bringing this additional evidence to the higher-ups, they had a rookie field agent conduct surveillance of Terry's household. Terry lived in an apartment complex which sat next to a heavily wooded area, and his apartment windows directly faced that very same wooded area. It was quite easy for our agent to observe Terry using the cover of the forest. The following information was pulled directly from the agent's daily reports. Dates on which no change occurred or where nothing really consequential occurred will not be contained in this audio record, not for the purposes of secrecy, but for the purposes of time and not wasting tape. Day 1, June 18th, 2004. Subject woke up at 7:43 a.m., proceeded to take a shower and make himself breakfast. The mirror in question is located in the living room hanging on the wall, which separates the kitchen and living room areas. Subject interacted with the mirror at 9:17 a.m. in order to check his hair. Nothing out of the ordinary aside from spending slightly longer than expected looking into the mirror. Subject left the house in order to pick up groceries at 5:22 p.m., arrived back home at 6:48 p.m. Day 9, June 26, 2004. Subject woke up at 7:17 a.m., proceeded to take a shower, and skipped breakfast. He began to look into the mirror at 7:46 a.m. and didn't stop until 9:21 a.m. Subject didn't appear to be fixing his hair or doing much of anything aside from staring directly into the mirror. The mirror itself is rather dazzling, with a very intricately carved frame, but the subject was much more concerned about his own reflection. Subject left in the early evening and returned with an antique lamp and what looked like an old rug. Subject spent another 45 minutes looking into the mirror before bed. At present, I cannot get an angle which would allow me to see the subject's reflection in the mirror without exposing myself or losing line of sight. Day 14, July 1st, 2004. A grandfather clock was shipped to the subject's apartment. Subject also bought curtains with ornate tapestry designs on them. Spends more and more time looking into the mirror. Subject is frequently skipping meals, ignoring his ringing cell phone, and staring into that brilliantly designed mirror. What would go great with the mirror is some kind of... At this point, the field agent scribbled out a bunch of notes and made them entirely illegible. The next readable word is the word want. Want to get a closer look. I feel it. I can feel my head swimming. My vision has begun to fail me. The distortions become more severe whenever I stare at the mirror, that wonderful, wonderful, lively, coaxing mirror. If only... Notes cut off there. Day 18, July 5th, 2004. They never wanted me here. No one ever wanted me here. They never wanted me here. No one ever wanted me here. Please, please, no. Give it here. Give it to me. They never wanted me here. No one ever wanted me here. I never wanted me here. They never wanted me here. Want me here. Who wanted here? Never want me here. And the notes proceed like that. It was on this day that the Bureau stopped receiving daily reports from the field agent. We knew something was off about him, but he seemed normal enough on the phone. It was his notes that showcased just what the mirror itself is capable of. After 2 days of radio silence, we sent a retrieval crew in. They found our field agent face down in the woods with slash marks all over his arms, surrounded by his surveillance equipment, including a video camera, his notebook, and a pair of binoculars. He was bleeding out. Medical aid was administered. After entering Terry Green's apartment with specific instructions to avoid looking directly into the ringed mirror, our crew discovered an apartment that was dolled up to look like an old Victorian mansion. There were obvious signs of a struggle, but no signs of forced entry. Terry Green was kneeling on the ground, cutting his arms and wiping his blood on the floor, mumbling the words, "Never wanted me here," over and over and over again. Terry resisted our crew's attempts at removing him from the apartment, but eventually they brought him far enough away from the ringed mirror where he appeared to be semi-conscious once again. We checked Terry into a psych ward where he did eventually recover both physically and psychologically. The retrieval crew threw a jet black blanket over the mirror and brought it back to HQ, where it was intensely studied by our in-house antiquarian. It turns out the mirror was crafted in the mid-1800s by a craftsman in London. It was made for the Yardley family, well-off aristocrats that made their fortune originally in teaching mystic herbalism, but worked their way into the perfume industry as the world modernized and became less interested in such things. Alan Yardley, the head of the Yardley household, allegedly committed familicide and took his own life in 1874. It was alleged that he murdered his wife and 3 children with a kitchen cleaver, and then killed himself with a gunshot to the head. I reviewed the green film myself after the crew brought our field agent's video camera back to HQ. Only on the 16th day of surveillance did I catch a short minute-and-a-half glimpse of what Terry's reflection looked like. His mouth was open as far as his jaw could physically unhinge. His eyes were so wide that it looked as though he had no eyelids. He didn't blink once. Tears were dripping down his face. His breathing was erratic, and he would open and close his hands, in and out of the shape of a fist at random intervals. The face that Terry Green made still prevents me from sleep some nights. I don't think I've ever seen such a fearful expression. It's not the face somebody makes when they're about to die. That's a certain kind of fear, but not this. Nothing like this. This was the expression somebody makes when they watch someone they love be tortured in unimaginable ways. This wasn't a fear of death, a fear of intense sadness, a fear of pain. Even now, I can't fully describe it to you, and I wouldn't dare subject anyone to this image unless it were necessary, and it certainly isn't necessary now. Not only that, but the moment Terry looked away from the mirror, the expression vanished, and it was like nothing ever happened. The signs of struggle were completely manufactured by Terry Green. He tipped the grandfather clock onto the ground, breaking it, and then appeared to be very particular about where each shard of broken glass was to be positioned on the floor. Same thing with the precise angle of his overturned coffee table, and he was very careful about the way in which he ripped a lampshade. He would pick up furniture, turn it on its side, and then examine it for a while, turning it left and right until he appeared to be satisfied with its placement, like he was trying to recreate something in his mind down to the finest detail. I was asked to testify at the eldest committee meeting about whether to keep the ringed mirror as an object of study or to nullify it immediately due to the effect it had on anybody who looks into it. I wanted to keep the mirror for further study, and my case was based on my discovery that one may look at the mirror through video camera footage or photographs without any ill effect on the observer. But my case was ultimately unconvincing, because in order to study the actual effects of the mirror, we needed a test subject. Because when left alone without anyone looking into it, the mirror behaves as a normal mirror would, aside from the occasional distortion of the reflected image. It was decided that the ringed mirror was to be nullified. 2 of our higher scribes stood the mirror vertically in a large metal cylindrical container and filled the entire miniature silo with polypropylene. Once the liquid plastic hardened, it was brought to a classified location and buried deep underground. It was concluded that this was a garden variety case of the spiritual possession of an object. I can't honestly say that this is an unreasonable conclusion for them to make, but I wouldn't go that far personally. Although just because people may have acted this way in the presence of this mirror, it doesn't necessarily preclude a kind of spiritual element. After all, correlation doesn't equal causation. The eldest committee tends to associate most things with ancient concepts like ghosts, demons, angels, things of that nature, things that are referenced in esoteric and alchemical texts. I still think it's a waste to give them the final say on such important matters, but that's what tradition gets you around here. They don't have much patience for experimentation, unfortunately. Many people have died horrible deaths in the presence of many different objects, and this doesn't happen consistently in those instances. It seems like a cop-out to take the worst thing in this mirror's history and just say that this is what caused this behavior without any further investigation. But then again, who am I to try and apply science and logic to something that doesn't abide by the laws of present science or logic? At the very least, we know this is an actual anomaly, by the way it affected two separate people in exactly the same strange way. Perhaps this is just the jitters getting to me again, but something about Terry's face in those 90 seconds made it seem like something much more horrible than seeing a ghost or being corrupted by a spiritual force. His face resembled more the fear of discovering that everyone except for you is a ghost. The Bureau officially considers this case solved, but I have my reservations. And everyone who saw Terry's face has their reservations as well. Case status: closed, solved. Anomaly: proven, nullified.
Spiritual possession now. A freak death I can see happening, but spiritual possession of objects? I apologize, everybody. You gotta understand, I have no idea what's going to be on any of these tapes. But the Ortega thing being legitimate has my hair standing up a bit. Let's nip this thing in the bud right now. I'm gonna look up what's going on with these Yardleys to see if there's anything to this. We can do something of a live debunking right here. Might be some urban legend on WordPress or some blog or whatever. You've got to be fucking kidding me.